Welcome to Higher Intelligence, the podcast that blasts current events, social topics, and life's important discussions on a higher plane. I'm Paul Gordon, aka Diamonds, joined as always by my co-hosts, Chris Pregastis and Matthew Matthias Carlson. What's up, fellas?
What's up, buddy? How's it going, my man?
Chilling, man. I'm excited to talk about today's topic. I can't even express just the insane things we've been through this week. Some great films on a lot of things with technology. So our topics today we're going to get into are going to be very, very interesting. Overall, I guess a broad term would be the information age. So we're welcoming you guys to our discussion on the information age. So welcome to the show. Don't forget, as we always start off the show, we remind you guys to stay positive, productive, and progressive in your life, and always embrace honesty with yourself. Question everything, man. That's the entire point of life, is to get yourself out there and learn. So welcome to Higher Intelligence. Let's get the show started. First and foremost, the information age. One of the big things that we all discussed earlier was that we're kind of the first generation to have the type of access that we have, that access to seek out knowledge and the ability for smaller voices to be heard on a global scale, the capability to search and learn things that you were never able to learn before. Let's dive into that. Matt, let's start with you. Give me your thoughts about like the progress and history, maybe technological advances, things like that, primarily within the modern age of technology.
Yeah, well, I think that when you talk about the information age as it is now, right? We went from the industrial age to the post-industrial age to the information age. And that big change was the radio. It was noise. It was the manipulation of frequency by human beings. It was the radio, and then it was TV. And then from TV, and TV held it down for a lot of years. TV was the end-all, be-all of communications for the mass of the world, right, from the 30s until, at the very least, the late 80s. Right. If you want to consider the internet around in the late 80s.
I wouldn't. I would
how many of us really had the internet in 1987,
Right.
So you have to think that TV, and that's why TV is as powerful as it is now. It's kind of dying out. It's being replaced by the information age. It's being replaced by your streaming media and these things that you're getting online instead of through terrestrial television.
Right.
But it was around for a long time, and it's what influenced the world. It's what provided all of the information outside of schooling. That's where you learned everything.
Right.
Was through TV or books, or which kind of died off a little bit because of TV and because of radio, and now the internet's bringing it back after it almost killed it to death.
Right.
So the information age really came about in the radio and television era, and then what you see now and what we consider the information age now would be the internet, right? I mean, that's the end all be all of the information age.
For what we know of it.
What we know. Well, right. To this point, we can only talk until this current moment.
Right.
But the end all be all of the information age is the internet, and I think that's what we need to focus on today. It
is a crazy World Wide Web that we have around us.
Yeah. We were reading on some different research online and found that 1 in 7 people have a Facebook account, which means at least 1 in 7 people in the world get on the internet semi-frequently.
That's crazy.
And that makes it the third largest country in the world. If we were to classify things by where you're associated, if you were a Bing user or a Google user, or a Facebook member, or a Google Google Plus member, Facebook would be the third largest country in the world.
That's incredible.
That means that it brings as many people together as second largest landmass in the world.
Right.
Brings together. That's pretty impressive. You don't see that in any other time in history outside of geographical location dictated by a government.
Right. It's
Allegedly.
Allegedly. No, one of the craziest things about it to me is just the way that we are all connected. The fact that we all have a camera constantly on us. The fact that we all have a microphone constantly around us. It is a little bit of a trip. It's almost like a technology leash, if you will. And so many people, they feel naked without their technology. And there's people that religiously carry around all of their little, the iPad, their telephone, even your iPod Touch, things, every single thing that you have. Like if you can have a basic back and forth chat with somebody, or you can access internet, you're pretty much at the whim of the entire World Wide Web.
Yeah, at the whim of the connection, at the whim of the node, the whim of the matrix, this connected thing that you're all a part of, that has a voice and almost a thought of its own, because it's
a part of your personal life that if anybody has the know-how and wherewithal to do so, they could find out anything they needed about you.
Well, it's because we're the first people to ever document everything to everybody at one time.
There have been a lot of societies and cultures around the world that document a lot of things. I mean, even going back even into this last 100 years, the Nazi Germany documented everything. I mean, the Nuremberg trials were the easiest thing ever, man. I wish I could have been a judge on that, because they didn't have to do anything. The Nazis hung themselves on that.
Right.
But so documentation's always there, and it's not just that. It's the fact that now the individual, right? Like what we preach, right?
Right.
Love yourself. Be the master of your own ship. That's what the internet's providing, is a voice for you to be just as powerful and just as important and just as much of the problem, or as much of the solution
as you want to be. And there's never been that before. The information age, this culmination of the technological growth that we've had over the last 100 years is right now. And that's the forefront of that is the ability for you to be just as powerful and just as much of an influence as anyone else. You have just as much of a voice now because of this internet, because of this information age.
This is the first time we're recording to the entire world.
Exactly.
That's exactly what I was saying. Like you've recorded to your village before, you've recorded to your friends before, but not even just recorded. Broadcast.
Well, and if you're really important, you might have got regional, right?
Yeah,
or
regional.
maybe nationwide.
But that's like you're talking about an individual.
Exactly. You'll never see that.
Yeah. Now it's everybody, and it's trippy, man. Like you start thinking about how many people are listening to what you have to say, and there's this perceived veil in front of you because it's a screen and nobody's actually seeing you, or in most cases hearing your voice. It's just words on a screen. There's a little bit more intimacy with it being our voices,
right?
And there's even more intimacy where it's a video of you, Skype calls, the news. You trust your newscaster. That's that.
There's a reason
so
your
anymore.
newscaster is your newscaster.
Exactly. But with most people, the veil there protects them from actually having to deal with the fact that they're talking to however many people they're talking to. You know what I mean? Like, it's something I don't think we've experienced yet, and something we're still getting used to as a species. And I think it's kind of fascinating.
Absolutely.
We're in the baby years.
Yeah,
of this
and
kind of
nobody
thing.
knows. The corporations don't know. I'm looking at this thing right now, and it says the Ford Explorer launch. They did a big exclusive launch of the new Ford Explorer on Facebook this last year. And it was the Ford Explorer launch on Facebook was bigger than the Super Bowl ad for the Ford Explorer.
Are you serious?
Last year. Like, corporations, corporations are barely catching on to the fact that the internet is where everything is now. The internet is where we all are. 1 in 7 people, probably 1 in 5 people, because I would say
realistically, that's just 1 in 7 that has Facebook.
So I would say probably 1 in 5 people has the internet.
At least.
Maybe detaching yourself from the information age, because that's what Moab is.
Yeah, well, that's true. Why not talk about that? The fact that
let's get into that in a second.
How much of a weird thing is it that
we have to detach ourselves?
Yeah,
from
well,
we have
no,
to
like
get
you meet
rid of the
somebody,
leash.
like You ever been on a date with a girl and she forgot her cell phone?
Yeah.
And it's the worst date ever because she cannot even function properly because she didn't have her cell phone. Like that's a fact. Like even older people now. Ask a 45-year-old if they feel comfortable when they lose their cell phone. They're probably going to be like, "Nope, I'm freaking out. I need my cell phone with me." And that's because you're connected, but you're connected to that hub, this big hub where 1 in 3 or 4 or 5 people in the world are all connected to it at the same time, and you're all sharing information, you're all pulling information out and putting information in, and you're cataloging information. How much information are we cataloging every day? Another thing that we were reading today, 20% of Google searches have never been searched before. 20% of every Google search that's searched every day has never been searched before.
I'm just trying to think like on
a macro scale.
I'm trying to think on a micro, like for me, for example, what have I Googled that hasn't been seen before?
Yeah,
I don't think anything that I could think of. I mean,
you think that, but I imagine you're inputting just as much.
You might.
I'm always looking up stupid shit like how to spell words.
That doesn't mean it's been searched for before. It's predicting what you're gonna say.
Yeah.
It's putting.
I get
those are
it.
just algorithms that are like, what's the next word in this series? Of words?
What's the most logical word in this series?
Yeah.
And then the fact that, and let me tell you, people, I'm not trying to be a conspiracy theorist, but understand that anything you type into a search bar or anything you put online or anything, you need to either understand all of those agreements that you're clicking yes to, or you need to understand that you don't have rights on the internet anymore. That is those are your options. Read through a 70-page EULA online when you download, Google Earth.
Yeah. And it's just like we were talking about the other day too after that film at Sundance when we talked about tailored internet.
Yeah.
The internet that you experience is not the internet that everyone experiences. A lot of things that you type in to your search engines, the web pages that you visit, all of that information is being logged on the regular about you, and the internet has been tailored for you. So when you go to websites and you see ads and coincidentally they're about a lot of things that you're interested in, that's not a coincidence. That's because the internet is gathering a ton of data about you and knows your preferences, your likes, things that it needs to promote to you because you would be the target audience for those products. And like from my internet experience is just littered with advertisement for DJ equipment.
Yep. Or whatever you search, it's literally that day.
Yeah.
Like if I go to a camping website, within 3 hours, half the ads that I go to when I'm on a website are about camping stuff.
Right.
Or when we were putting the studio, when we were looking at all the studio equipment.
Right.
All of a sudden, I'm not a musician of any sort, but half of the ads that I see now are for some sort of music equipment.
Try this new Fender.
Yeah.
Like, I don't play guitar.
Yeah, I'm like, I can't even hum properly.
At least you can listen on key.
That's right. I can listen like a motherfucker.
But it's a really crazy world, technology and the internet. And the way that we're all connected has this kind of grasp or hold on you. You have this constant river of information flowing out from your person that goes into your technology.
Into the cloud. We're going to call it the cloud from now on. Can we agree that? We'll call it that from now on. It goes to the cloud.
And so for you to understand easily, like everything that you search and do in your daily basis is being
cataloged,
retained, and it's being used to market to you and people around and like you.
Or it could be used for other things. Think about it. How easy would it be to catalog somebody's web usage for 2 years? And how well would you learn their psychology, the way they think, what they do, what they like, how they react to things? I mean, you could learn so much from someone. You are now learning.
People are planning vacations. I mean, everything.
Anything. Yeah, and you can map all of those things. I mean, we have the technology now to map any of that. If you have a big enough server farm, if you are an entity that has that kind of capability, you can run all that data through some sort of logic base to sort it and to understand it. And once you do that, you now understand. I'm not saying that they do it by any means, but I'm saying that companies and governments and higher powers that be now understand the world so much better because they understand the individual, and then they understand the individual and how they all kind of layer together into groups now, and they understand how each regional area works, and how many of this kind of person is in an area, and how many of this kind of person is in an area. You can catalog all that now, and nobody takes a step back to think about that and to think about how granular the world has become because we're all connected to this cloud hub of information, and it's information exchange. It's information in, information out. I'm exchanging information about me for information about whatever I'm looking into.
It's the modern paradigm.
Yeah.
It's what we do on a daily basis, and it's become the new world. It's a new age of technology.
The information age.
The information age.
Oh, yeah, but that's the point, though, man. I mean, we have a whole bunch of wires and things that are connecting us together, and we're putting information out there at the speed of light. It's not even slow anymore. When I was growing up, and you were growing up, and you were growing up, it was
Screaming at you.
like
yeah, and the exchange rate
Welcome.
wasn't the same. The exchange rate wasn't the same. You couldn't download a video. You couldn't do all these things. You couldn't stream something from a website.
Nope.
Right.
It was. Go ahead.
It was just basic. It was just information.
It was text-based.
Yeah,
It
I
took
was
forever
gonna
to load. Good luck trying to find porn on the internet that didn't take an hour and a half to. You'd be 3 ways to finish by the time that
You probably
her
would've,
upper
like,
torso
4
was
days,
done downloading.
That's just a photo, not a. That's not a video.
So I
Video.
mean, the internet was so completely different, and that's what's crazy to think about is the internet was so completely different, and the world was so completely different just in our lives.
Yeah.
And then in our parents' lives, they never even had the internet for half of their life. And then they're just trying to play catch up on how to figure out how it really works.
Right.
And then our grandparents, are they even really playing catch up? Or are they like, it's the exception, not the rule, when an older person of that age knows how to use a computer even remotely?
Yeah. My grandma's awesome.
Right, but that's because she had to. And
Yeah,
she is
she-
a
with
highly
school and
intelligent
everything,
woman.
yeah.
And yeah. So there's a difference compared to,
But yeah, well, no, I mean the grand opposite. Like there's some people of that age that they just refuse to even touch a computer. I know people my dad's age that refuse to touch a computer.
Exactly. I ain't reading.
Right. Yeah, I'm not
reading. I'm
don't
not
make-
learning how to use the magic box.
Yeah.
Don't make me touch
But-
your Harry Potter
or-
screen.
Yeah, right.
Are they not the smart ones though?
Right, yeah, exactly. And guess who
These
does
guys-
it? Guess who entities that be don't have information about.
These old guys are inadvertently living off the grid.
Yeah, they're the same guys who are like, I'm not using magnets to pay money. I'll write a check or pay cash.
Right. I'll tell you what though, there's guys that are like that I can tell you I personally know, but they're so happy and content in what they do in their life, and they don't need to be connected either.
Yeah, they have no interest in being connected. But
And they don't need to. Like that's the beauty of it. Their jobs, their everything doesn't need to have that.
those
So-
are dwindling though. Those positions in life
They are.
gonna
Well,
die
but
out.
Well,
certain
yeah, think
areas.
about it. By the time that we're
Even
our grandparents'
laborers
age-
are gonna have to be able to have a basic knowledge of how to use a tablet.
Well,
and-
everything. Yeah, do like freaking farmers are gonna be rolling around.
they
with,
already
like,
do.
iP-
They already do. man.
robotics.
They
Dude.
already
They're
the
gonna just be controlling robotics. in the
robotics right now. The robotics industry is blowing up because somebody had the bright idea in the last 10 years to put it into farming. For years and
Yeah, why
years,
wouldn't
farming
you?
was still mechanical or manual.
next- Yep.
Okay, and now I think my personal opinion, I have no knowledge of this whatsoever besides how I see the world, is when we moved ranching and cattle and all of that style
To like
to
stacked.
yeah,
Just like
when we moved it from mechanical or manual to robotic, basically, we don't herd cattle very much anymore. We pack them
they're
into
just-
a pen and they live like they live like poor miserable ruined creatures. But
a lot of them stay out and roam.
not a lot of them. There's a reason that,
I think
that you
you're
buy
seeing
free
the
range
video
meat.
from like after they
Yeah.
come.
No, they still
they
don't.
herd them and then they put them.
But they don't run around like they used to. They're not free range. It's hard to find free range cattle now. If you look for free
Is there
range cattle
really
in
a
your
difference?
Yes,
Like-
absolutely. Free range means that it's roaming free. It's not penned in.
Okay, can I explain to you the difference between free range chicken and the other type?
Yeah.
a free range chicken versus a regular chicken. A regular chicken is inside of a like shoebox, basically.
Right.
Pretty fucked up. Then you've got a free range chicken, which is stuck in a pen with hundreds of other chickens, or if it's a massive pen, thousands of other chickens, to the tune that a shoebox actually is a little roomier.
I don't know about that
And-
because I know some free-range chicken farmers here in the state of Utah, and they run around in a field.
There's cows that do the exact same
Right,
thing.
but very rarely. You're not going to go to Walmart and buy cows that have been living a good life. That's
you're
all
not
I'm
gonna
saying.
go there and you're gonna find a chicken that's lived a good
Yeah,
life.
exactly. But that's why I was saying Whole Foods. I was like, you go to Whole Foods and you buy meat,
Yeah,
and there's
but
a
if-
reason that it's $16 more.
Yeah, but
than it
the
is at
reason is
Walmart.
because Whole Foods is capitalizing on the
Yeah.
market. You can buy that
You can
kind of
buy
food
good
for a
meat.
lot cheaper.
You can buy good meat from a directly from a farmer for a lot cheaper.
Oh yeah,
or directly
absolutely.
from.
But
a
how many
butcher
people
for-
live in an area that you can do that? We're lucky
We
here in
do.
Utah
We
that we
do.
can do that.
The
But
Western United
go to-
States pretty much is that.
Go to
whole
LA
US you can
and try
pretty
and
much-
find a butcher.
can.
Yeah.
Really?
You
Yes.
can find butchers.
You can find
any
anything in
city
LA,
out,
man.
Not a
because
butcher.
farm-
Not a butcher. I mean, like, go to a farmer and say, "Hey, see that cow over there that you're raising? I'm buying
Drive-
him from you."
Drive
when
an
you're...
hour and a half north.
That stuff exists everywhere. If you want to go out that far to go get yourself that product, you can. But do you want to slaughter? Do you want to cut? Do you want to package and bring all of that home? Or are you going to purchase a whole cow, a half cow? Or do you want to go to the market and have the capability to buy a steak?
I want to go to the
That's already
market and I
cut.
want to buy a steak, but I want to buy a steak from a cow that's not fed hormones and eats GMO foods and
You're gonna-
has
you can-
1,600 antibiotics injected into it and is raised to full size 6 years before it's supposed to.
Can
and
we agree that there's like a hierarchy of stores you can go to get quality foods?
oh, absolutely.
Okay, so then you have that choice.
Yeah, I do,
You
and I have
fully
the
have
choice to
that
go.
choice.
I know. I'm not. I'm saying I wish I had the choice to go to.
Walmart and do it? Walmart.
Walmart doesn't do it.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
can't. Look, unless you go to the level of a
Okay, I
locally
wish it was
sourced-
easier to go to those places. I wish more people had the ability to get that.
No, we do.
They do.
The problem is that nobody takes
Walmart's
the time to do that anymore. You can get locally sourced. There used to be a time where there wasn't any such thing as a
Mass chain, I
you
know.
What you're doing is taking out the fact that we used to be a locally sourced economy, and now we're on such a broad scale that they take this kind of stuff and mass produce it. They do things,
And that's what causes problems.
exactly.
So maybe that's the next topic of the podcast. We now have the knowledge because of the information age to understand the filth that we've been fed, or the lies that we've been fed, or the way that the masses have been taken advantage of by greed and the ability, the ability of the corporation or the ability of the higher entity to take control of things before the mass public understands them.
I think that it comes down to the fact that as humans, we become, when we get new technology or new information or whatever, as a race, we take it to an extreme before we find some sort of an equilibrium within that age. And
So
we're
is
still in the
is
first,
this where we're coming into the equilibrium then? I guess?
think that this would be the beginnings of it, because this is the first 20 years of this age, and we're still at the very dawn of it, and we're taking it to like global sourcing. We've outsourced all of the jobs in this country to other countries. We've done it at the damnation of our own economy, and now you're sitting here like, well, what the fuck? So maybe we do need to not ship everything overseas, and we need to have locally sourced stuff. And still, there's not, you can't do that to everything. You know what I mean? You can't mass produce everything. Like this is the first time we've ever been able to do this. We're a very, very learn as you go species.
That's very well put, Christopher.
And
I like
so-
it.
Thanks, buddy.
Yeah, I agree with you. I mean, that's such a huge deal with we're always in trial,
Yeah.
and then we wait on error.
Think of and then put it down to the micro. Look at us on this podcast.
Yeah,
Like,
well, it's the same idea.
you know
we're,
what I mean?
we're
Like,
figuring it out as we go.
We went to the extreme the first 3 weeks. We recorded 25 hours plus of stuff in 10 days.
That's
Like,
the argument that I have with conspiracy theorists. I'm like, don't you think that for just a second that nobody really knows what the fuck is going on? We're all just kind of winging it. Since there's 7 billion of us, there's a lot of clusterfuckery going on.
yeah. I think that's most. I mean, I think that there's There are some things that are contrived. There are certain markets that are contrived. There's all of that, and there are things that have happened in human history that have been covered up inevitably by governments. That's just.
But it's by any kind of leading power.
Governments,
by anybody
corporations,
in power.
individual people.
Throughout human history, there's all sorts of shit that's been covered up. And throughout history, there's also been, from the point of view of whatever power, is the version of history you're taught. Okay? So that's all happened. But to think that everything in your life is completely controlled and completely... This is the first time in human history that anybody has collected data on individuals at this level.
That's true.
Why isn't maybe the public perception that they don't know what the fuck they're doing?
Yeah, I mean, they don't. They're the first people to admit. We learned that this week talking when we went to that Q&A and that conference. We learned that all the people in the government and all the people in the world and all the big corporations,
the corporations' CTOs, their technical officers, their main guys,
they don't know any better than any other older 65-year-old guy.
Or anybody else that could just get on the internet and study up on it.
Yeah.
Like, you can educate yourself on this kind of stuff. It's all there.
Yeah. Well, and technology evolves so fast. That's another thing. Coming from a technology professional, technology evolves so fast, it's almost impossible to get a good education in it. Because by the time that you get through 4, 6, 8 years of school, whatever it is that you go to school for, the technology's blown past whatever you've learned the first 2 years. So only 2 years ever make sense, and they're already the shit end of the technology by the time you get out of school.
Right. Everything you've learned, it goes by the wayside as quickly as like your computer depreciates the second you buy it from the store.
So an intelligent human being who just can learn on their own and use the information age, use the internet, use the power of technology to inform themselves, they can learn just as much as anyone else could. They can learn just as much online as you can from any university. If you put your mind to it, if you are willing to go through that, if you're a strong-minded individual, you can go online and get free education, a 100% free education from Stanford University. They've given every single one of their lessons for free online.
I read their philosophy papers, and it's one of my favorite colleges to read papers from. And it's unbelievable that this stuff is just readily available and accessible for any person that they want. So if you choose to go search out and study anything, the thing is so many people want pointers or like direction on how and where.
That's what YouTube's for. That's YouTube U. You get on YouTube, you type in
YouTube University.
You get on the internet, type in how to and whatever you're looking for, and all of a sudden there's a step-by-step guide of some dude looking into a camera telling you how to do it. There's that type of education too. You can find any education you want on the internet.
I mean, that's what we're trying to say is there's just so much information, and maybe that's one of the keys. A lot of people do need a push. A lot of people do need that oomph, that prod, that pointer, that guidance. Maybe that's something that we need to do online and take that as an initiative as a human species to create something that is open and free to everyone in the world, that's accessible to anyone in the world, that's anyone's idea of an education can be on there. Somebody from Zimbabwe can teach, a local tradition that they have on there, or somebody from Stanford can put their math lesson on there, or you can put how to play, the mandolin on there, or the guitar.
So that gets back to the whole, like, we're coming back to a middle, and we're actually learning, like, this is the last 10 years at least, organization of websites and where content is located and how you access it. Boom. Yeah, no, it's finally getting to the point where now you go these places for this information.
Yeah.
It's growing, and it's going to get more organized and more tracked, I guess.
Oh, and once like Oculus Rift and stuff takes off, and we're standing in our closets surfing the internet for 4 hours, and you're completely immersed. Oh,
dude, it's gonna be it's gonna turn into an experience because it's the beginnings.
It already is an experience.
It's going to turn into an entire experience rather than just
an all senses experience. Every sense will be engaged by the internet.
And you may not feel like you have a veil in front of you anymore.
Yeah.
Right now, there's still this cloud. It's just a picture of you. It's very rarely live you. And it might get to a point where all of this is really you, and you're maybe not so flamboyant with your opinions and things if there's people there actually interacting with you like that.
And it's funny how quickly we take technology for granted. Like, I talk to my grandparents they're in, Swaziland, South Africa, or, Seoul, South Korea. And I can talk to them video and look them in the eyes, and they can look me in the eyes. And everybody's just like, yep, that's just how it works now, 6,000 miles away or whatever it is. And it's just no big deal.
Thing when Kato and Sylvia went to China.
Yeah.
And they dropped a line just like, oh, Skype you, just here's a tour of the place. And they walked the computer around and gave me a tour of the place that they were at. And it's just crazy. Like, you're an entire world away from me.
50 years ago, it would have been a letter 3 weeks after they got back.
Yeah, exactly.
Not even 50
no, and actually,
years
it wouldn't
ago.
even be 3 weeks after they got back because you're forgetting that they're taking a boat.
Oh, that's true.
Taking a boat back here.
10 years ago, video conferencing wasn't the norm. It was infantile.
Right.
At best.
And if
now,
you were quite...
major news organizations use online video conferencing because it saves money rather than sending a video team out to talk to a guest.
Right.
Yep.
They get Cisco or whatever, Skype, or all of them are branded within the broadcast.
The last company I worked for spent millions of dollars a year just on video conferencing. Millions of dollars on just video
you don't
conferencing.
have to be there anymore. Having a meeting, I mean, you can literally
And the
pull
amount
up docs in front of each other, especially if you're at a computer and you're doing it on, Google is the most useful one that I've found because you can just throw a doc up and be like, hey, we're all looking at this now. You're literally in the same room. The only thing that's missing is the physical interaction.
Well, it's funny because I've noticed this working for companies for so many years, is companies have been using these technologies for a lot longer than public have, like video conferencing or even like word processing or Excel or PowerPoint or all these things. Most of those things were something you only used in a company until like 10 years ago. If that, 5 years ago, I would even say. You only really ever use those in a company. Very rarely, maybe Word, you would use as a student or whatever.
Right.
And like sharing of documentation and all these things. These were all things that you used in a company but never got used in the public sector or in the personal sector. And now they're all here in this, we use them. Like the three of us doing what we're doing now can use Google Docs to share documentation, ideas. We can video chat. We can communicate, all three of us at one time. We can do all these things that you wouldn't do as a group 5-10 years ago. Right. As an individually sanctioned group, not as a company, as a corporation, as in anything else. And that's another, one of those connecting tools of the internet.
It's a whole lot to put your head around, man. And
it is.
Actually think about it, it's not fathomable in a day. Like, days used to go by slow. Now there's enough information being spewed at you in a 24-hour period that the human mind has never experienced this.
Yeah. Well, and we're at the forefront of it. Our brains are the test subjects for how much information we can really start to soak in digitally.
Yep.
I feel like the way that technology has advanced in our lifetime, we are the first ones, the ones that were just too late to experience life before this connectivity and then experience life after.
Yep.
We are that exact age.
I remember
as
kindergarten.
We were little kids.
Do you remember your first computer experience, Paul?
I do.
Do you remember yours, Chris?
Yep.
Yeah. And I remember mine, kindergarten.
Right.
It was before kindergarten, but I remember all the way back to kindergarten touching a computer multiple times a week. Like, I remember playing with it a few times at my uncle's house or my cousin's house or whatever, younger than kindergarten. But I remember by kindergarten, there were like 2 days a week where we would go down to the computer class,
dude, and
play for an hour.
Blue screen, there were like 8 little educational games.
Yeah, terminal screens on an Apple IIe, and I would play. I can remember the games. I remember kids in like first grade. There was a game and you were a triangle, and it was all vector graphing. And so you would make designs just like you would with like CAD design now.
Yeah.
But it was just, and these kids in like first, second grade were making pictures of our teachers' faces and doing all this badass stuff with it. And you're sitting there and you're like, wow. And then I remember by like sixth grade, I was doing all my teacher stuff. I was working on their computers. Yep. I was the guy that, my
Making
teacher
sure
had
they
a
were hooked
problem.
up to the TVs correctly.
I'll tell you right now, I hacked my grades in high school like 5 different times.
Ooh, you guys are on that.
Because you don't even, it's not even hacking. It's sad to even say hacking because it's not.
You knew your teacher's password.
You knew your teacher's password, or your teacher had no idea really what a computer was, to the point where they left it like up and running 24/7.
Hacking has nothing to do with that.
It was just the fact that you were ballsy enough to walk up to your teacher's computer and change some shit.
Change your grades.
All right, well, let's talk about that list from earlier, Matt, that you found on prdaily.com. There's a guy by the name Eric Qualman who's the author of a book called Socialnomics, and he says that social media is the number one activity on the web. So, Matt, tell me about it. What's your thoughts on it?
Okay, my first thought when you say that is, of course, it's the exception, not the rule, when a human being does not want to have social interaction, and honestly, as much social interaction as possible. People are needy as shit when it comes to meeting other people and having other people in their lives.
Right.
And the internet has provided a vessel for interacting with people that you never would interact with. That's the whole cool part about the internet, right?
Right.
I may be into one thing that 4 other people in my entire state are into. But I can meet up with all those other people that are interested in that.
Right.
Across the world that you'd never see.
And that has effect from the smallest to the largest, because you're talking about you can interconnect with people that maybe you never would have met otherwise, and you guys spark a friendship, all the way to finding people that have similar interests, to finding people that have similar political points, to literally starting movements socially. Social activism is something that is happening on a much larger scale than ever before globally because of the capability to connect and spread the message. So you can get your voice heard, you can get events organized and things where people have the opportunity to express their interests and points with like-minded individuals and organize. This is something that's never been able to be done before, other than, like we discussed yesterday, you are lucky enough to maybe have a local newspaper or radio pick it up. Or if you in the modern age of news, the news station in your town picks it up. But then that's all pretty filtered media anymore.
Right.
So now
it's
this
only if your message falls in line with theirs will it ever get on that.
Yeah, exactly. And so that's the point, is that if it sparks ratings and it has something to do with their message, you get opportunity to speak to the masses. But now with technology, our newsroom is everywhere, and our news feed is our cell phone cameras.
And you're starting to see it with, I try and express to people now, I've taken up as like my own personal fight against the world or whatever, is trying to tell people how to interact with police officers. Because I do not think the police officers are inherently bad. There's a very bad stigma on the police. And the way to resolve that is what LA is doing right now. And I'm very proud of the city of Los Angeles, California, for doing this. And I have to say, if this ever gets heard by someone, you're doing the right thing, and I'm glad that you recognize that.
I agree with you. I know what you're about to say. Spit it.
These lapel pin cameras are absolutely the right thing to do. But here is my key for you. This is my warning to you, Los Angeles. If you do not make that information public from the onset,
right,
it will become public. I'm just stating facts here. It's going to come out at some point. It has to. There's just no way that can always be hidden. You need to make that public knowledge from day one. And you need to say, we want our police officers, we want our peace officers to
be accountable
for their actions. And we want them to do their job. We want them to protect and serve, right? Their job is to protect and to serve. And that's been lost.
How shitty most cops do actually get treated by the public.
Absolutely, and hopefully we can show that.
Yeah.
Maybe that's the next reality TV show. It's not world's most shocking police chases or anything like that.
It's not a reality TV show. Yeah, it's just stupid.
It's just police video footage that they have added effects to, and there are no sirens, no horns. You cannot hear the guy 200 yards away jumping into a vehicle. None of that is real. Nobody screams. Those are all added. Help me!
But
No,
maybe
you
that's
can't hear
the next
that
thing.
from a helicopter footage. Thank you. Like, did you not
that's-
realize that?
Yeah. Maybe that's going to be a good reality check for the masses, though, right? Everyone says, "Oh, it's the cops. They're all so bad. They're all so terrible." I'm not saying that. I truly am not. I have family members who are police. I respect the police. I mean, I tried to go into the military for hell's sake. I respect it wholeheartedly, but I do believe that they have not been held accountable for their actions for so long that it's created corruption and dissent, and it's broken the system.
Yep.
And providing for accountability will change that really fast. I mean, when you're being watched, just like when we turn on these microphones, our brains totally do a 180 and start thinking completely differently.
Click into everybody's watching and or listening type thing.
Yeah, it's the same way.
And on that notion, going back to your point, is just you have to be transparent if you are the LAPD and wanting this to be a
if you're
successful...
anyone, if you are a police agency, if you're any sort of person who says, I have particular
How about
special
we
rights
take it outside
for...
of not just police,
Yeah,
regulatory
anything,
agency.
Yeah.
Yeah.
IRS. If I go into an interview at the IRS, I want a lapel camera that has that has public access to everything that's spent. And guess what? Maybe that's what happens to us too. Maybe that's what has to happen. If everyone is being watched, no one's being watched, right?
Well, that's the thing, is that everybody's going to end up on a specific way of behaving. Because you're not going to have privacy anymore.
But we're not going to have privacy. I mean, we can all agree that in the next 50 years, privacy is fucked hard out the
privacy's
window.
already gone by the wayside. Dude, Xfinity Comcast, which is a massive media corporation that, by the way, owns NBC and Universal and a
boatload of other
an
companies.
amazing amount of other companies. This is one of the top media companies in the world, and they offer taking your entire home and digitalizing it, and you can unlock your doors from your cell phone.
Yeah.
You can check
Change
on
your
all your
thermostat.
cameras around your house and see what's happening inside your house. You can switch your thermostat.
If you think you're the only one with that feed?
You are not the only one with that access. I just want to let you know that you allow that to happen. I'm not.
And
over
we're not
here
targeting Xfinity, by the way. This is everybody.
Yeah, this is everybody. That's just an
home
example.
automation in general. That's what it does to your house.
And understand that this isn't something where you can just play the big government, big brother's watching us or whatever. And I'm not saying that at all. I'm saying that, like we started the show off with, if you are allowing your entire information set go into, say, your active wired home that has the capability to unlock doors and do this, then check out live video footage and whatnot, the entire World Wide Web has access to that. The question is, who is skilled to get behind those barriers, or who is that information being shared with? But we happen to know for certain that there are people that aren't even like close to connected with the government out there that have the technology skills to just jump in, and they could watch you in your home on every one of those cameras without your red light even being on, without any kind of notion that you're being watched. Allow it.
It's truly the case, but they're honestly the good guys.
Right.
That's the problem. Everybody looks at them as these criminals, these bad people that are doing this. They're the good guys, because guess what? There's a whole nother subsect of people, these other entities that have access to this information, and they're the people who've had access to this information since it started. They're the people who have ran the media corporations. They're the people who have built the information age to what it is today. They're the people who are the ISP providers. They're the people who are broadcasting your cable.
Yep.
They're the people. If you cannot see that there is a controlled backbone to all information gathering and disbursement, this podcast isn't for you.
Yeah, you need to just, and maybe this podcast is for you, but you need to just take our advice and go research it and just learn it for yourself.
And understand that anything you do digitally is being recorded by not just you, but multiple other sources. And that is just pure fact.
And that's everything you do.
Yeah, that's everything. That is literally everything. You bank online, you email online, you do anything.
Everything is online. There's no more. You don't go to the bank anymore. I can't tell you the last time I went to the bank other than go to an ATM that didn't charge me.
Right? Thanks for that, by the way, you debt collecting assholes.
Yep.
Banker fucks. You're the worst part.
You
of
can
this
take
society.
a picture of your check and it goes into your bank account now.
Right, and then that photograph is on the World Wide Web.
And then
by
let
the
me
way.
talk to everybody who still just uses checks. I hate you. You're what's wrong with this country now. You're ruining my life. Never again do I want to work with someone and have them be like, "Do you take check?" I'm gonna look at them and be like, "No, I don't take checks. Does anyone take checks?"
I have
Go
a
try
credit
and
card
pay
reader that
gas.
plugs into the headphone jack of my phone. I take credit cards.
Go try and pay for your gas with a check. I dare you.
It's a piece of paper that says, "I promise I have this money. Trust me, please."
Yeah, it's because my bank stamped that I have it because they trust me.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well, and what's funny is
the bank
a
will
check
cover
is
you though.
way more dangerous. A check has your address, it has your signature, it has your bank account number, it has the routing number to your specific
Yep.
bank,
Right.
it has your bank's address, it has the date that you did this, it has a bunch of your handwriting.
It's
I
like
mean,
your fingerprint.
yeah,
your
and
financial
plus
it has
signature.
your fingerprints.
Yeah, and it actually literally has your fingerprint.
So why would you ever use a check?
I don't
Let's
know.
talk
I
about
probably-
this.
I
am
still
going
have
to
the
start a
checkbook I got
website
when I
that
was
is just
16.
going to inform old people on how to do new shit. All right, that is my new job. Oldpeoplenewshit.com.
Instead of your history podcast, I think that can wait for later in life. I think you need to help the generation that's
Oh no, man, history's still taking a while.
history.
Yeah, history's still taking a while.
Is it too soon?
Too soon. Too soon.
too soon.
No, I talk to people. I talk to old people all the time for work, and they all joke about that. That's one thing I like about old people. They
well,
do not take death too seriously.
Once you hit a
I'll-
certain
how
age,
can
it
you?
just becomes.
yeah, I try and
we
sell.
just had this
Okay, so
discussion.
yeah, I had heard this on the radio today. It was like somebody was like, you have to start taking small deaths, and I was like, what the fuck is this guy talking? So I was just kind of like intrigued.
What is he talking about? Like dying slowly within
Well,
yourself?
like the realizations that you're not going to be an NBA basketball player. So that's like a small death. And then you start taking that, you know what I mean? The realization that you're not going to do maybe what you thought you were going to do with your life, or it's not going to be the way you thought it was going to be. And it's like, those are all small deaths you go through, so that when you hit 80, 70, it's a different mentality than when you're 20. And these pains probably hit us hard, but a guy who is 80 years old and realizes he's not going to be able to do something is like, yeah, shit, I knew that.
Right.
It's just a perspective thing. It was really
It
interesting.
is. I don't really consider it like
I don't
deaths
want-
though,
yeah,
because
I don't want it to-
NBA was like
that
my
was-
thing. I was gonna be an NBA player, but I don't think that I would call it a small death, but more an enlightened reality.
Yeah,
Like-
or a reality check. You had a mental awakening, and that's not to say that if you seriously put your mind to it and you had the ability to work at it for 5, 6, 7
Right.
years, you couldn't build yourself into a proficient amateur professional or maybe professional in some level
Right.
basketball player. But do you want to really do that, or do you want
That's
to take
dedicating your
yeah.
life solely to that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what,
And that's what the grasp
That's
is.
what being great at anything is.
But that's
is
what's being a
dedicating
kid's
yourself.
cool about.
Yeah.
Is if you get good at something when you're really young, like those kids who got really good at skateboarding when they're like 7, or you see a kid that's
like,
just
what
balling.
age did you pick it up? 10?
Yeah. And
Okay,
I
so,
knew
like-
by 13 I would never be professional.
Yep. But then you look at a kid, whatever his name is, that Ryan kid from
Ryan Sheckler.
yeah, and he's a pro by like
13.
9.
Yeah,
Oh, 13.
he was an actual, like, he could compete with any 20-year-old, 25, 30-year-old professional skateboarder by the age of like 14, 15.
Yeah. And that's the way all the kids I was teaching how to ski are going to be. Like, they're
Exactly.
4 years old, 5 years old, and they're already shredding.
Right.
And then by the time they're 10, 12, and they have a little bit of wherewithal to know about the scene and what is expected of them, that's the level where you get to, and you're like, okay, so this kid's going to be an Olympian at 16 years old.
Yeah. Well, and it's the same idea as what we were talking about with the, to bring it back to the original conversation of the podcast. It's the same idea as the information age.
Mm-hmm.
These kids are learning it at a younger age, and they're getting better at it because skateboarding wasn't big in 1994.
by
In order for
97.
me to have it big by 2001, but by 2003 it was huge, and so the kids had a better opportunity. More kids were into it, so there was a better chance of a kid who was really got good at it really young. And it's the same idea with technology. Is the more people that have access to it at a younger age, the more ideas and the more growth we're going to see out of it. Like all the people who've started these companies. I mean, Steve Jobs was what, 24, 27, something like that when he started Apple. Bill Gates was the same age. Kid from Facebook, sorry dude, I don't remember your name, but
Mark Zuckerberg.
Mark Zuckerberg. Mark
I was about to
Zuckerberg.
call Brian Zuckerberg.
Yeah, I mean, he was, 19 when he stole that idea? Oh,
When he
shit,
stole
son, I
that
said it. I called you out on it.
Your Facebook account will
yeah.
be shut down promptly.
Steve Jobs stole his idea, and so did Bill Gates, so I'm not judging you,
Most
Tim.
people, most inventors don't come out with the idea.
Except for Nikolai Tesla. That's my man.
Yeah,
My
and
main
he
dude.
and
Nikolai.
he wasn't advantageous about it, because why aren't we running all that shit right now? I mean,
For another podcast.
Because
We'll
there
do a
was more money
conspiracy
put
theory podcast.
behind Edison.
Yeah.
and Tesla.
Yeah.
just like
more
there was-
money was put
Because
behind
Edison
Edison
already had
just
his
like-
company paid for by the corporate elite at that
Yeah.
point. So
And,
they were
and
like,
Tesla,
we picked that guy.
Credit to
just like-
Tesla, though. Tesla was getting his paper from...
Edison was fronting Tesla. Have you read the history of
Well,
this?
yeah,
Edison punked Tesla a lot with the help of Rockefeller and
Morgan.
Morgan, because they were backing Edison Electric at the time.
Yeah.
Which became I think GE came out of that.
Yeah.
And a bunch of other companies came out of this whole little conglomerate.
Mm-hmm.
And this is back in the day.
Yeah.
And Tesla was getting funded because even though he came up with better ideas than anyone else, like Tesla is one of the most underrated, and there's a reason that he's underrated, and it's because all the people that are making all this crazy amount of money right now, like GE and all the companies like that, are trying to keep it on the hush because they totally hoodwinked us for 140 years.
Right.
But Tesla was coming up with these ideas that never made him money because they were free electricity. He came up with Wi-Fi in 1904 or something like that.
Right.
We got fucked out of 80 years worth of cool shit because these people
development.
wanted.
Think of the
Well,
if
because
we were
people wanted to
developing off
what?
that-
They
think of
wanted
the-
greed. It was greed.
They capitalized
Yeah, they
on it.
capitalized on it. And that's capitalism.
Capitalism.
And that's why capitalism, hold on, we're bringing it back again.
Hummers.
That's why capitalism is like an ebb and a flow, just like we were talking about with everything else, right?
It's
The
humans.
learning, the human nature, the ebb and the flow of
Maybe
human
capitalism is the purest form, and why so many people are attached to
Yeah,
a political
because
or
it's
an
the same-
economic ideal is because it roots so within a
the flow of
most human-
capitalism is just like the
Yeah.
flow of human evolution.
Because,
you ebb and you
if you
flow
think-
into these ideas. You learn something, and then it works for a while, and then it breaks, and you got to tear it down and
you gotta
rebuild,
build-
and tear
you
it
gotta
down
build
and
something new.
rebuild. And that's kind of what we're doing. And I wonder if people don't. I wonder if the internet has just enlightened us enough to look at it at that macro level. That
Of course it has.
That-
Because this
that-
information
well,
wasn't available 20 years ago.
yeah, and that's what that's what. So that's
okay,
what we're
so and this
seeing.
brings back a conversation that Diamonds and I were having of this being the first time in human history, again, that the access to very broad view of history, as well as the speed of knowing where we're going, or having the ability to kind of not control where we're going, but perceive where we're going, like we're creating...
Dictate.
Yeah, kind of dictate where we're going. But that's never been the process before either, because if you think about it, nobody ever knew everything about human history. And not that we know everything about human
But we
history.
have the ability to answer any fucking question we want, and that's the case.
Not
now.
any question we want about human history, but we have a more clear view of human history than any other generation in the history of
Right.
humankind.
Right.
As well as the speed at which we're moving forward.
Right.
And we can use that information of our history. Like no other generation has had that. That's another cool thing about our point in history, that we have this unattainable knowledge of where we came from, and it directly affects where we're going on a regular basis. Which it should. How about I put it this
agree.
way?
Well, okay,
it should
so-
dictate where we're going, because we should learn from, but we have a habit of not learning from our mistakes.
Banging
as
our
a
head
species.
into a
Right.
wall.
Yeah.
So, and that's because you can only remember for so long, right? And
Yeah.
and look, what happened 2,000 years ago when the Library of Alexandria was burnt to the ground? How many thousands of years of human history did we lose there?
Right.
And now we're at the same point, right? We've centralized all of our data and all of our intelligence again. And what happens when shit hits the fan? But that's for a different time. I truly get what you're saying. I like the idea of the internet providing that sort of platform for knowledge and growth in a personal level. That's what the internet to me is. It's the platform for you to grow individually. It's another platform, because you can do it from books, and you can do it from private discussion, and you can do it from education, and you can do it from so many other things. But the internet can help all of those things. The internet is the vessel, the platform to build off of, to build yourself off of, with all those things included. Soak that in.
It's a very tough pill to swallow that, you know, whereas our parents had a reality of they would be able to wrap their heads around everything that goes on during their day. And
they only knew a small amount. They didn't understand.
No, but that was the simplicity of human life back then.
But that was the beauty, though, because life, it's not as simple as you think. Because when I talk to, you know, people of that era, the thing I find is that their critical thought was the first generation of exploratory thought outside of the masses and the mold. Our grandparents grew up in the generation of do as you're told, and if you have some kind of out of line thought, you whip it back into shape, because their reality was so centrally focused on a plan and a model, a paradigm.
Yeah, it was the people born after the World War, in the 50s and 60s, that are the people that had that ability to question things,
right?
Even a small amount, because they definitely didn't have the ability to question it like an 18-year-old does now,
right?
But they were the first people to get that.
To say
not
this
cookie cutter home,
this
not
is fuckery.
Hoorah, go into the military, get a job, go to college, you know, cookie cutter lifestyle.
Yeah.
That the U.S. at least, I can't speak for anything else, but I assume that this cookie cutter lifestyle had been created all over the world.
Yeah.
And then it changed once.
Well, and it exists. I mean,
rock and roll came out. Rock and roll, baby.
It was rock and roll. Once the well, first of all, there's still countries that live with the sheltered.
Oh, absolutely.
Mindset. I mean, God, like if you get a chance, shout out to Vice, one of our favorite. I guess everything's publication.
Yeah, it's a magazine. It's a multimedia.
Movies.
And that's
short films.
We'll get into that sometime.
Vice is phenomenal. So just check out Vice if you guys get a chance. Just Google Vice.
To it. I think it was an inspiration to this coming together. I mean,
Yeah.
I think that we all had an idea of how we wanted to go about
Shout
this.
out to Shane Smith. That's who you need to
Yeah.
shout out to.
And I think
Shane Smith.
The dude that kept Vice alive and kept it running and has done what he's done, because he's a revolutionary figure in our culture and nobody knows it yet.
So
and it's shifted the mentality of a generation. I mean, there's so many like-minded people like us out there who are watching Vice. And granted, there's quite a few things within Vice that you're looking at, and it's going to be like...
It might not be important to you.
You know, it might not be the most important thing globally either, but there are things on there that are phenomenal, and everybody should know about them. But I digress. The point of bringing up Vice was their North Korea documentary that Shane Smith goes on. And he goes through one of the weirdest experiences I've ever seen in my life.
Is that the one where he went with Rodman?
No.
That one was funny.
No, he is just...
This was before anybody had gone to
this
North
is
Korea.
like before...
this was before Kim
years
Jong-il
ago.
had died. This was when it was still like the Korean curtain.
Well, it still is. Like, it's just...
way different now. They have cell phones now. They have a little bit of knowledge. Like, this was before there was anything going on in Korea. This was when if you had a cell phone, you would be killed if you were found with one. Now it's okay. It's legal to have a cell phone.
Well, damn, these cats are shenanigans. It is one wild-ass uniform country that, wow. It's incredible to see.
What did it tell you?
Well, it just shows me that it literally opened up my eyes to know that if propaganda and media being filtered and scripted towards a direction for a country's interests, it can be so powerful and overtake the critical thinking of the masses and join them all to be not only what human nature wants you to be, which is inclusive with others, so you feel part of something, but it shows you that everybody, at least in your local level, is a like-minded individual just like you, where the reality of it is outside of that country, that's not how it is. People look on that country, and the way people there thought about it, there was like a museum that teaches you about how everybody loves North Korea and that they consider North Korea to be one of the four most countries in the world and leaders in advancement in technology and one of the most powerful militaries. And that's what it is. It's propaganda and it's information manipulation. Yeah. If that can happen on such a hard scale to someone where they don't have access to that, it's definitely happening on a global scale. Every country, every major institution, whether it be a religious, a corporate, or a government-controlled institution, those institutions, be they large enough, have interests, and they will sway all of their material toward those interests. And it just showed me, I think, a little bit of perspective that if we didn't have some of the freedoms that we do have, like being able to have this conversation, being able to host this podcast, being able to access internet, and being able to learn things and go out and seek information on our own, like we could be just as easily susceptible to that kind of hoodwinking as they have been.
Minorly, we have been.
Well, we are. And
absolutely.
that's my point. That's my point, is we are. And that's what I'm trying to explain, though, is that because of the little freedoms we have the ability to go out and seek this truth and knowledge and understand that this is the world that we live in.
And to be honest, we may be lucky. We may be the lucky ones who got the internet before the internet was filtered.
Right.
Because we got the raw internet. We were the
We got
kids.
the real, like we got the
kids who got the
And you still have it.
unregulated.
You still have the
No,
ability.
you don't. You do not have an unregulated. This is not the wild, wild west anymore, buddy. This is post-expansionist. This is the post-expansionist
I
Western
think you
United
can
States
find
now.
it though. It's not
Well,
all gone.
The thing is, though, is that there's a lot of
But it's
people in this
disappearing
world.
quickly.
No,
Yeah.
but there are a lot of people in this world
I'll agree with you.
who maybe don't care for the term, but have been dubbed hacktivists or part of hacktivism. And these types of people have the capability of receiving and blowing the whistle on a lot of things that used to be secret, private, and now these things come to the forefront. WikiLeaks is a huge example. I mean, you look at just the fact that our government was flat out busted in spying on even our allies.
On everybody.
And I mean, documents were released. And if you people like talk about, oh, conspiracy, this, that, the other, I'm telling you, this is information that is leaked, that is fact. The government spies on not just our enemies, but our allies and our own people. And it's always a measure of national security.
All right.
But how much of that information is realistically used for national security is up for debate. And how much of that information goes by the wayside is up for
proven to be
debate.
marginal. It's been proven to be marginal.
But how much of that information is used for other things?
Exactly. And you have to say, like, the government says, oh, well, we're not going to use it for this, or we're not going to use it for that. And then I have to say, why not? If Google's using all of my information to
Right.
map me out as a human being and understand how I think so it can target me better as a market,
Yeah, market
as
share.
an
like an ad-
individual market.
Yeah.
I am my own. That's literally how they look at you now. And if you don't know that, you need to understand that you are your own individual market. When
Yeah.
you are an internet entity, you are your own individual market. I've never heard it called that, and I hope that I'm the first person to say it. And if I do, dibs on that shit.
Yeah, I'll take it to a step further on a coin of a phrase for you if you want. Individual demographic. You are your own individual demographic. They target you specifically.
That's the first time that's ever happened because marketing was completely based around demographics before.
Yeah,
This
you
was
try
in
to find your
existence.
target audience or
And
your
it
mass
was, okay,
audience.
so which radio station are we going to broadcast on because their demographics fit what we're trying to
Exactly.
sell to them?
And no other
Now it's
medium until this realm of the information age has
everyone's
offered you.
connected.
Yeah, no other form of media has been able to advertise to you like that. Everything's been like, okay, what is gonna target our demographic? What is our demographic? How can we reach out or appeal to them? And then that's what you shoot for. And if it's a generic, vast demographic product, then you try to target them. But you look for your demo, you look for your product and where and how it's going to be sold. Now they look at you and take all of your internet search history and everything else and look at you, sum you up, and put you into your own individual demographic.
Yeah.
And they target ads directly to you.
They not only ads, but the way you search Google is targeted to you because they track the way that you search over time and
Yeah,
they
if you
aggregate it together.
If you search something too, that same search by someone else will turn up different results.
Yeah. The internet is tailored to you. What's interesting though is it's not like some evil super genius behind a computer somewhere.
I've got them now.
I've
and
got
all their
everybody.
information.
It's a giant cluster of computers and a bunch of code that a bunch of humans have written. And so they understand the theory behind it, but they don't understand the output. So what's coming out of it is not human. It's human created, but it's not a conspiracy. It's not a manipulation. It's just a bunch of computers processing data to the best way that we've coded them to understand.
Yep.
So don't think that it's some guy sitting behind a computer at a desk at the NSA saying,
Paul Gordon loves turntables.
Yeah.
We're going to make sure that he sees
we're-
all those ads.
No, it's just
That's important
algorithms.
to document.
It's all algorithms, man. And at this point, there's not. I mean, how many Americans are there? Hundreds of millions. There's not hundreds of millions of other people standing out there spying on you individually. If you're doing some fuckery, maybe there is.
Yeah. Well, let's put it this way: there are people out there that are involved in a tidbit of fuckery, if you will.
Yeah.
And they have more than just one person staring at them. They
There's
are utilizing
whole
many
agencies
of the agency's
trying to
resources.
connect them to other people and see where their actions are going.
Yeah.
Like there's.
With the new NDAA laws that were passed, by the way, if you haven't read through them, and nobody will, but if you do,
The listen, the NDAA laws. Look up N as in Nancy or national. Okay.
D as in defense,
Yep.
A as in authorization. It's the National Defense Authorization Act.
Yeah.
And we promised ourselves we weren't going to talk about government things, but we're going to talk about this one because it's important to the information age.
I just need to let this be known that while all of this was happening, what Matthias is going to drop on you, while all of this was happening, the number one story in the United States and trending on Twitter worldwide was the unbelievably ridiculous comments by the Duck Dynasty guy.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
And the Pacific Partnership
bullshit
stuff this week was the Bieber stuff.
Yep.
Right.
They
Well,
just-
and the Ukraine.
Yep, and the Ukraine.
Just know this
the fact
is what-
that Ukraine is at war right
No,
now.
Yeah,
the Ukraine is at
in
war with itself and it's in
protest.
the middle of a revolution.
Yeah.
Okay? And you haven't heard that. I don't know if you knew.
and
but
Kiev is a war zone right now,
Yeah.
and you are worried about Bieber being arrested on DUI. And just recently, as we're about to explain what the NDAA is and what this means for you as an American citizen, you guys were all talking about, I shouldn't say you guys all, quite a few people I'm sure understand this,
and
but
hopefully if
quite
you're
a few
listening to
people
this
don't.
podcast, you're probably not the person paying attention to Justin Bieber.
Right.
Once again, you probably found the wrong place if you're
But-
into Justin Bieber.
Yeah. But the NDAA was in the midst of being signed into law as we were trending topic talking about Duck Dynasty.
As we were being bombarded by the Duck Dynasty topic, which was about LGBT rights or LGBT
It's not even
relations.
about LGBT rights. It was about a guy's opinion of nonsense.
Right.
It wasn't like a
Well, that's what I'm
debate.
saying.
It wasn't like if it would have been one thing if there was something going on
Like
in
a
the
movement.
national debate.
Yeah.
It was a guy who got suspended from making a TV show by a corporation who has every fucking right to do it
Yeah.
for his opinion.
Agreed. And we don't even need to talk about that because we can all understand that was silly bullshit. But that's what's called a soft topic.
Yep.
A soft topic is something that they use to dangle the carrot in front of you, to keep you going the direction they need you to. And that is a soft topic, something that they use to herd you along. A hard topic is something like the NDAA, where while you're being tricked into paying attention to a soft topic that they truly don't care about, but they use because they've set up some ridiculous regime scheme to make a majority of people care about silly bullshit. They've used that to change all of your perspectives on what they're really doing, which is like the NDAA. The National Defense Authorization Act is something that was put into place to allow any government agency. This isn't U.S. I mean, this is any government agency is now allowed to access and manipulate data for security purposes. You now do not have the right to free speech. You do not have the right to put what you want online with knowledge that it is safe to be there. Like even if you say, and this is the worst circumstance you can use, but I use it as a very easily understandable descriptive way. If I type something out online, I hate cheese crackers, whatever. I'm not threatening the cheese crackers. I'm not telling them I'm going to kill them. I'm not doing anything but describing my feelings toward them.
Yep.
However, under the NDAA Act, that would be understood as a threat towards those crackers. They have now changed what a threat level is online. So if I send something out that says, man, I hope Justin Bieber gets fucked by donkey dicks, like he is a piece of shit. If I said that about someone else that maybe had a little bit more clout in the world, I could be arrested for...
Can we just talk about the fuckery that is this shit? If you are in our home state right now, let me know if this sounds like something that's going on. Establish a center to be known as the Conflict Records Research Center. According to the text of the latest version of the NDAA, the center's task would be to compile digital research database, including translations, and to facilitate research and an analysis of records captured from countries, organizations, and individuals now or once hostile to the United States.
Okay, and now I'd like to caveat that statement with the fact that we live in Salt Lake City, Utah, in case anybody in this podcast that listens to this podcast didn't know that. And the biggest database center ever built in the entire world, in the history of this world ever, is being built about
20 minutes
18 miles from where we are now?
If that,
20
not
miles?
even that.
Yeah.
Not even that.
Just across a stone's throw away from where we are talking to you right now.
And probably being recorded talking to you right now.
And also, that whole thing is the Matrix, my friend. That is the brain. That is the...
Neurocenter.
That is the center of information gathering for the next 20 years. And it's
in
here.
our backyard.
Yeah.
They are...
So... To conclude, yeah, they are. That's the best definition of where we're at this point.
Because I don't even think that, and I think that's the point. I don't think they know what they are yet.
No, they don't. They still
don't know
growing.
they don't know what the
out.
fuck they're doing. They built this thing and they're like, okay, so what the fuck do we do with this thing?
Yeah. The only reason the government is tripping out about the internet and internet freedoms and all these things is because they found out that they were losing their control set. They realized almost before it was too late, or almost after it was too late, that they were losing their control base on the population. And now they're putting in stops to retrograde that. And
it may or may not work, though.
Yeah, I truly don't believe it will, and I think that they'll grasp that at some point, and they'll understand that we all need to work together, and we all need to communicate together, and they'll see that the power of the people is worth more than the power of suppressing the people.
Any other oppressive thing in human history has been thrown out by the people.
Yeah.
This isn't going to work. Like no regime has lasted from the dawn of time until now.
No regime has had nuclear bombs, and no regime has had FA-18 fighter jets, and no regime has had a naval system that can traverse the world in 4 days and gone into space.
They still need humans to press those buttons.
Yeah, they do. And
so
guess what? They own a lot of those humans still.
Yeah.
There's a very small percentage that are talking about what we're talking about right now, Chris.
If you're sitting there and somebody's telling you to push a button and you know what it's going to do.
Yeah, Doc, they do it.
That's still a human.
But then you're going to be put in the hot seat that you will be destroyed, and everything you know and everyone you know will be destroyed.
Which was the rationalization for using the nuclear bombs in World War II on Nagasaki and Hiroshima. It was, if we don't drop these and kill 50,000, 180,000, whatever the total came out to be, that we knew we were going to lose millions invading Japan. And that was the rationalization between using the nuclear bomb. And that's the same rationalization that's being used now to strip away our freedoms, because they're not recognizing what kind of impact it's going to make on the social infrastructure, the evolutionary infrastructure of the human species. They don't take these things into consideration when they make these laws and rules. And that comes back to the point of why we have to tear them down and rebuild, and tear them down and rebuild, because we find something that works, We run that shit till the wheels fall off, and then we start over. And that's what we've always done. This ebb and flow we've been talking about, right? The whole podcast we've been talking about this ebb and flow. And that's really where the world is right now, is in this ebb and flow. And I think we really are. You hear people talk about the changing of times. Mm-hmm. I feel like we really are at a changing of times. We're at the I hate to sound zeitgeisty or a little hippie, but we're at this zeitgeist. We're at this pinnacle of the movement from this world, this view of society and human behavior that we've had for the last hundreds, maybe 1,000 years or so, since Roman times, I would say, maybe. I don't know. If you're a history buff, come correct me.
I wouldn't give it 1,000 years because I think it's coming out of the Dark Ages.
No, because the Roman civilization was more advanced than the Dark Age civilization.
But we fell off for 300 years. Western society fell off intelligent thought and thought they could...
all the way until the Renaissance. It was
yes, exactly. For hundreds of years.
Okay, so we'll say from the Renaissance. We can tie the evolution of this shit from about the time that you can track the progression of human behavior or human evolution from then until now. And you can go back for even further. Let's be honest. As a historian, you would debate that it's always been evolving.
That it was ancient Greek. You could say that it was ancient Roman, and then you could say it fell off for 700 years, and then it happened again in the Renaissance.
And now you can see that we haven't really had a huge rebuilding time yet. It's always been progression, because we went from the Renaissance. Right at the Renaissance, we found the New World. So we started moving into the New World and taking that over. And we started progressing through the New World and expanding. We've been expanding for the last X amount of time. And then in America, because we had this huge piece of land and all this new mineral, all these new resources and all these different things, we've been expanding and we've been expanding. And we're just barely starting to hit the wall where there's no more expansion. We're starting to reduce again. You could argue that the first Great Depression, I say the first because, let's be honest, people, we are in another one. And if you don't believe it, it's happening. It's slower than the last one. Go team. Go team slower,
slower decline,
but it's happening. And you can see these ebb and flows, and that's what I'm talking about, is there's an ebb and a flow to everything. And I quite honestly have never really looked at the world that way until you said that an hour ago. And I can now, it's already, built itself up in my brain. I'm like, layering this into different things that this could totally make sense for. And there's an ebb and a flow to a lot of things. And I think we're finding an ebb and a flow with what
Why do you think we're so comfortable with financial markets? And that being our entire fucking economy?
Yeah, because, and why... Okay, why...
And our emotions are attached to that kind of shit. When
I want to play devil's advocate.
The Dow goes down, all of a sudden, we're freaking the fuck out.
The ebb and the flow of technology and social evolution, human evolution, societal evolution is something that we're just starting to grasp. But what I'm thinking about as we talk about that is if I want to play devil's advocate, right, and you're saying, we're just starting to grasp the fact that things build up for a while and then fall apart and build up for a while and fall apart. To play devil's advocate, why are we tripping about global warming then? Because global warming is a buildup and a decline. That is literally the argument. If you turn on Fox News today, they'll be like, well, there was an ice age 1,000 years ago, and there was, there used to be a sea in Montana. And I
think the difference is that we're now noticing the effects humans are having on the planet. And this is the first time in human history that we've ever had that ability to measure the effects that we're having on the planet.
And I agree with you wholeheartedly. And I want to point out, I was just trying to play devil's advocate. I agree with Chris here.
And all I'm saying is, when you...
I don't want anybody to think I'm some crazy... I don't believe in global warming, okay?
Listen. Here's my thoughts on everything, okay? Okay?
No, but... Okay, so, we get to a point where we understand that we are having an effect on our planet, right? And that's unfathomable to most people at any other point during human history. And we're sitting here, okay, so what do we do with this information? There are going to be sections of our society, because now we have everybody's message in front of us and we can read it at any moment because of the technology we have. We have groups of our species that say, holy shit, we have to react to this right now or it's going to end the world. We have people who are going to say, this shit doesn't actually happen. It's been happening throughout human history. And we have people who are just saying, how about there are things we do to counteract the fact that we are completely fucking with the amount of oxygen that's in the air. Because we breathe oxygen.
Yes, we do, but we don't just breathe oxygen. And a lot of the things that you talk to a standard person about global warming don't make sense
and
anymore.
it goes over their head.
Yeah.
And that's completely understandable. And I'm not saying that it should be sweeping reform, because I think that would devastate all markets and economies, and everybody's life would go to shit. But you have to take steps that say...
You have to recognize that things travel in an ebb and a flow, and then you have to, instead of being a greedy fucking dirt pig and running on this petrodollar for the last 30 years that you recognize that you shouldn't have been, you should have been moving away from it, but you had based all your financial funds on it. Whoever came up with that, thanks, because that's going to be my grandkids dealing with that bullshit. If we could have recognized that the world travels in an ebb and a flow and said, oh, hey, it looks like petroleum is going to kind of fall out of grace in the next 20, 30 years if we allow technology to advance as fast as we thought it could. And instead of doing that, we're fighting wars, we're killing our youth, we're doing all these things that are keeping this ideal in place that's just part of the ebb and the flow of human evolution. And it was great while it lasted. It helped, it built the assembly line, it created cars, it created the combustion engine, which has been used to propagate modern agriculture and travel, and it helped create the technology revolution and the information age, to loop it back a little bit to what we've been talking about. And now we don't need it anymore. We can move past it. But there's too many people that are connected to it. They're glommed on because of financial reasons or whatever. They're attached to this ideal still. And it could be anything. I'm using petroleum or the idea of petroleum or the petrodollar as an example, but there's a million different things you could place in this, even if it's just an idea in your own head. Like, you're attached to your ex and you can't leave her. You can't get away from it because you're just glommed onto it because it has so much, it had so much benefit to it or whatever, emotional attachment, whatever it is. But when you can look at things as an ebb and a flow, you're moving through life as a frequency. You've got your highs and your lows, and you're balancing through them. And if you understand frequency in general, and you believe in
science
and ancient geometry and things like that, everything runs on frequency. The microphones that we're talking about are running off of frequency. Our cell phones are running off of frequency.
Our
water
brain
vibrates at a frequency.
Brain speech is frequency.
Exactly. Everything is frequency. So everything is a wave. Everything is an up and a down, an ebb and a flow, right? And if you can get on board with that and understand it and ride it like you're surfing, maybe that's why surfing's so cool to people, because it helps them subconsciously grasp the ebb and the flow
and ride it.
Yeah, and ride it. Well, and you're going to have to swim for a while. You might get rescued for a bit. You might be on a cool cruise ship for a while, partying your ass off, but you're going to fall back into the water and you're still going to have to swim through the ebb and the flow at some point. And hopefully you end up somewhere, stable for your final ride, if you will. Right. To keep it going on this hippie surfer rave here. But hopefully you end up somewhere stable and appropriate for your final ride. But you're going to go through a lot of ups and downs and a lot of rides and a lot of waves and a lot of highs and a lot of lows. And you have to navigate that. You have to be the surfer. You have to be the guy manipulating. You have to be the one controlling the wave, right? You might not be controlling it, but you're controlling you on it. And that's the key in our crazy roundabout way of explaining it to you.
Right. Well, I think that covers a lot of topics and bases. I don't think we even scratched the surface on the information age. I think the overall subject or topic of discussion, if we can leave our listeners with anything today, is go out and learn your technology, inform yourself on the information age. I mean, we are knee deep and shoulder deep, eye deep, however deep you want to call it, all into an age where we have the ability to seek out knowledge now, unlike any other time in history, and we have the ability for our voice to now be heard, and we can project it on a global scale because of this new information and technology age. So I think
you should also inform yourself as much as you're informed about the rights of your physical self, know the rights of your digital self, and inform yourself as much as you can about those things, because you never know what you're being, tracked on or watched on or whatever. Who gives a shit who's doing it or where it's coming from? Inform yourself on how it works, because it's really the only way you can have an opinion on it. People who aren't informed tend to have the most extreme opinions. And
just know that we're going to keep talking about this. This is going to be a subject that keeps coming up and up. And if you enjoy discussing the modern age and technology and where it's driving us as a society and as a culture, let us know, because we want to talk about the things that you guys want to talk about. We want to talk about what everyone else feels is important too, because we can talk about what the three of us or feel important, or the three of us and our friends that give in their input and things like that. But we want to hear everything. We want
Right.
to take everyone's thoughts and ideas into consideration. That's the whole goal with this, is to get as many people as possible involved and discussing and commenting and working together to work through ideas. And if you have different opinions, great. That's even better, because we're going to work through them together and we're going to come to a general consensus or an agreement that X amount of people are this way and X amount of people are another, and that's perfectly acceptable. As long as we can all be happy and loving with each other, we're good to go.
It's true. And I mean, that's the big deal. We want you guys to definitely be a part of everything that we're doing here at Higher Intelligence. We push for you guys to go out and, seek that knowledge, question things, and then give us your perspective. Give us a little hit and show us what you are feeling, how you feel about each topic, the things that you're thinking. You can email us at
higherintelligencepodcast@gmail.com.
And you can also hit us up on Facebook and just look us up, the Higher Intelligence Podcast.
Go to our Facebook now, damn it. I don't understand how we can have so many people listen to this stupid thing and not get on our goddamn podcast.
Yeah, just to let you know, we really appreciate the reception we've gotten, and it's been amazing to only have 2 of these things out and to have so many people actually listening to us. But yeah, the connection comes full circle when you can actually talk to us. So
yeah, and you can
get on our Facebook page.
Reach out to us.
Shoot us an email.
Yeah,
Hell, if you're a cool person, I'll give you my damn cell phone number. Let's just talk
right?
about it.
So we want you guys to definitely connect with us. So don't be bashful about any of your opinions. We embrace everything. So do as much connecting with us that you can. We would love to hear your thoughts and opinions. We might even have you on as a guest someday. Who knows? I mean, but the great thing about this is just inspiring thought and just allowing you to kind of get a perspective on things and move forward from it. So real quick, we always want to talk about being a positive, productive, and progressive person, and embracing honesty with yourself. Go out and question everything and spark that creative thought that lives within you. And that's pretty much what we preach here. So go out and live your life and become informed. Seek out that truth. Seek out that knowledge. And we want to thank you guys so much for joining us. My man Chris Pagastis, thank you, brother.
Thank you, sir.
Matthias, thank you, my man.
Thank you, everybody, for listening to us, and keep it revolutionary.
Yes, sir. And I just want to one last time thank everybody who's helped us boost up. We hit number 2 in iTunes, new and noteworthy in the philosophy section. So thank you guys so much for pushing us and supporting us and sharing our information and our program with everyone. Higher Intelligence Podcast, Paul Diamonds Gordon, my man Matthew Carlson, and my man Chris Pagastis. Thanks again for listening in. See you guys later.